Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call to order this Tuesday, September 17th meeting of the Pierce County Council. The time is 3:02 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Campbell.
Here.
Councilmember Kruger.
Here.
Councilmember Denson.
Here.
Councilmember Herrera.
Here.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Here.
Councilmember Morell.
Here.
Councilmember Mello.
Here.
The result of you have 7 members present.
We have all 7 members present and a quorum. Item number 3 is our Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, our moment of silence, and our land acknowledgement. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, followed by a brief moment of silence dedicated to our men and women serving overseas in the military, and then the land acknowledgement. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our land acknowledgement is that we acknowledge we are on the traditional homelands of the Coast Salish tribes. Coast Salish people have lived on and stewarded these lands since time immemorial, and they continue to do so today. We recognize that this land acknowledgement is one small step toward true allyship, and that we commit ourselves to uplifting the voices, experiences, and the histories of the indigenous people of this land. We're now at section 4, which is approval of our agenda. Are there any objections to approving today's agenda as presented? Seeing no objection, the agenda is approved. On today's council agenda, there will be multiple opportunities for public comment. On the consent agenda, you may provide comment on any final action item. This does not include items placed on the agenda simply for introduction and scheduling. On today's consent agenda, there is 1 set of minutes for approval, 2 appointment resolutions for final hearing, and 1 grant for approval. Those are subject to public comment. Then during section 8 of our agenda, we will take public comment on each resolution individually. And then finally, under community forum, there will be an opportunity to address the council on any topic that is not up for final action on today's agenda. For information on our rules for public participation, please review the bottom of page 1 of today's agenda. We're now at section 5, and we have the consent agenda before us. Does any member wish to pull any item from the consent agenda for further discussion? Not seeing any. Vice Chair Campbell for a motion.
Thank you, Chair. I move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt the consent agenda as presented. This is a public hearing on the final action items on our consent agenda. Does any member of the public wish to provide comment on those final action items on the consent agenda? We'll start here in council chambers. We'll invite you to the podium if you do. Not seeing anybody. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room on our consent agenda?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on any final action items on today's consent agenda, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on the consent agenda?
Councilmember Kruger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the consent agenda is adopted. Section 6 is messages from the executive and other county elected officials. There are a few messages from the executive. He's transmitting the following ordinances which were approved and signed on September the 11th, 2024. They include Ordinance 2024-544. This was an ordinance of the Pierce County Council authorizing the approval of applications for open space classification under the current use assessment. Several different properties are identified there. He signed ordinance 2024-545. This was another ordinance of the County Council authorizing the approval of applications for various properties for open space classification under the current use assessment. The executive signed ordinance 2024-548S. This was an ordinance of the County Council amending Title 18A of the County Code related to development regulations and zoning, essentially implementing decisions made in a comprehensive plan update from the council last year. There was also a message from the executive transmitting the following ordinance, which was approved and signed on September 12th, 2024. That was ordinance 2024-547, an ordinance of the County Council vacating a portion of the Benson Grant County Road. So now we're at section 7, proclamations, recognitions, awards, and presentations. Today, the Pierce County Council is quite proud to proclaim September 15th through October 15th as Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month in Pierce County. I'd like to invite the following recipients to the podium as Councilmember Herrera reads the proclamation into the record. I know we have Adan Espino who's here, and joined by several board members of Mi Centro, including Rose Mednick, Hugo Nicholas, Jimmy Davidson. Others from Mi Centro who are here, please gather behind Mr. Espino. We're so glad you're here. We also likely, I believe, have some friends from the Center for Latino Leadership. So if you're here for this proclamation, we invite you to surround the podium as well. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming September 15, 2024 through October 15, 2024 as Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month in Pierce County. Whereas each year, the Pierce County Council joins the nation in observing National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month from September 15th to October 15th by celebrating the histories, cultures, and contributions of Americans whose ancestors came from Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, and Central and South America. And whereas during Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month, the Uniformed Armed Services at Joint Base Lewis McChord will commemorate a long-standing and remarkable contributions that Hispanic men and women have made in building and defending our nation. And whereas the theme for 2024 is Pioneers of Change, Shaping the Future Together. And whereas the observation of National Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month began in 1968 as Hispanic Heritage Week under President Lyndon Johnson, and was expanded by President Ronald Reagan in 1988 to cover a 30-day period starting on September 15th and ending on October 15th. It was enacted into law on October 17th, 1988, and approved by Public Law 10402. And whereas the day of September 15th is significant because it is the anniversary of independence for Latin American countries, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and in addition, Mexico and Chile celebrate their independence days on September 16th and September 18th, respectively. Finally, Day of the Races, or De la Raza, which is October 9th, falls within the 30-day period. And whereas the Hispanic and Latino community has helped build and strengthen our society for generations at every level in government, to include science, business, culture, sports, education, and the arts. And whereas the Hispanic and Latino Americans of Pierce County form small businesses and community organizations rooted in centuries-old traditions, customs, and ways of life, such as Mi Centro in Tacoma's Hilltop neighborhood that has served the Hispanic and Latino community since 1983 and has brought cultural awareness, arts, education, and community services to Pierce County. And whereas Washington State has seen an increase in Hispanic and Latino representation at all levels in government, including the creation of the first ever Latino caucus in Washington State Legislature in 2023. And whereas Hispanic and Latino Americans represent a significant and fast-growing demographic in Pierce County, making up more than 12% of all residents, and we honor the invaluable ways they contribute to the county as friends, family members, teachers, elected officials, essential workers, co-workers, and more. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on this 17th day of September 2024 by the Pierce County Council that September 15th through October 15th, 2024 is Hispanic and Latino Heritage Month in Pierce County, Washington. And all residents are encouraged to join this special observation by seeking out celebrations, educational programs, and community activities to learn more about the role Hispanic and Latino Americans have played in our nation's history.
Let's give them a round of applause. Mr. Espino.
Well, buenas tardes a todos. I'm Adan, or Aiden Espino. I am the Director of External Relations at Mi Centro, which, as was mentioned in the proclamation, we've been in the Hilltop neighborhood since 1983. Everyone behind me is part of the Mi Centro familia and works very hard to serve this community of all stripes. We may be Latino servicing, but we turn nobody away. I tell everybody, once you walk into Mi Centro, you're Latino. So when you go out, I don't know. But it's very heartwarming to receive this proclamation on behalf of Mi Centro, which is one organization, and for now, the only Latino servicing organization in Pierce County, and to have this great partnership and support with Pierce County. We have had many great partnerships and both through funding, but also organizational, just to make sure that the Latino population and its unique needs are well served. And I just want to really deeply thank you for that. One of our best partnerships is the Small Business Accelerator Program, in which we have many, I think at this point it's hundreds of small businesses that come through this, and it's a very special program because it really, I think for me personally, it shows just the entrepreneurship and drive of our community, which I think interweaves very well into the fabric of American society, and we're very excited that we continue to do that. I wanted to share one fun fact about, it was mentioned that the proclamation and Hispanic Heritage Month aligns with many of the Independence Days of many Latin American countries. So I'm Mexican, and February 16th was mentioned, Fiestas Patrias. I just wanted to share for our non-Spanish speakers that sort of, and some speak better Spanish than I do here, so I might get corrected, but it could quite literally translate to Patriot Party. So just when you see Fiestas Patrias around, the Patriots are partying. I just want to share also generally kind of an update with the Latino community here, right? It was mentioned this is a fast-growing demographic, and we are. If I got my numbers right, there was about 130,000 new residents over the last 10 years in Pierce County. About 32% of those residents were Latino identifying. The Latino community in Pierce County grew by 60%. And they're of all stripes, we do all sorts of programs. We have all sorts of backgrounds. Some of us are immigrants, some are first, some are second, third. Some are what we like to call the border crossed me, the I didn't cross the border type of Latino. It's a very diverse and wide array, and it's expanding rapidly. And Mi Centro, in our role in the community, has also expanded rapidly to keep up with it. I believe last year we had maybe 7 to 8 staff members, and I think there's more than 7 to 8 people behind me. So, there are unique needs of the Latino community, being heavily immigrant and heavily sort of descendant of recent arrivals, but there are many people that have been here for generations, and many that are bilingual, maybe that speak native languages, maybe that even, believe it or not, there are countries in Latin America that speak French. It's amazing to see all the kind of people that walk through here. I think my main sort of message to you as the council and as a partner of Mi Centro is to is just to keep an eye, and we're here to be patriots, both party patriots with Fiestas Patrias, but also I think part of this American and Pierce County community, and really shine with the diversity, both in the Latino community, in the diversity of Pierce County, and at large. So, yeah, I might be rambling on, so appreciate your time.
Well, thank you. We love our partnership with Mi Centro. Thank you for taking time to come here today and celebrate. And we're going to ask you if there's community celebrations as well that are taking place that you should help us announce for this month. But before we do, let me turn to Maya Espinoza, the Executive Director of the Center for Latino Leadership, who's also here to help accept this proclamation and help celebrate.
Thank you, Chair Mello. My name is Maya Espinoza, Executive Director and founder of the Center for Latino Leadership. I'm excited to be among friends today to celebrate this very exciting day. Thank you, Councilmember Herrera, for bringing this proclamation forward. It really does mean a lot to especially families like ours that really cherish our community and are still involved. As Adan so eloquently has pointed out for the last few minutes, I won't go on, but our community, is deeply entrenched with our family values, and it means so much to be able to do something special like this to recognize our heritage and, of course, the value that our community brings to Pierce County. Center for Latino Leadership is a 501c3 education-based civic engagement nonprofit where we really try to inspire, empower, and equip Latino leaders across the state to achieve their greatest potential. Myself being of a bicultural Hispanic household, I learned early on the distinctions and nuances within the Latino and Hispanic communities. My dad's from Peru. He's a Peruvian immigrant. My mom is one of the border-crossed us Mexican Americans, but really truly raised in a bicultural household. And we love living in Pierce County because it is such a diverse community, and we feel right at home here, especially when proclamations like these are brought forward. So thank you again for recognizing our community and for having us here with you today.
Thank you for making time to be with us. Mr. Espino or someone from your staff, are there some community events that we should be aware of to celebrate this month?
So on September 25th, Mi Centro is partnering with Clover Park High School to do the Hispanic Heritage Night celebration. Mi Centro also has a really great partnership this year to commemorate the 20th annual Dia de los Muertos celebration with the Tacoma Art Museum. So we're going to have, aside from the main event on November 3rd, we're going to be having a series of workshops to really celebrate culture and different traditions on October 3rd, 10th, and the 17th. And they're all free community events for folks to come out, and everything from cooking to physical activity to art making, and so just different ways to really celebrate art and culture and tradition.
That sounds great. We'll love. Go ahead.
Apologies. One more. And also we're also going to have a Dia de la Niñez on October 19th, and specifically October 19th in a lot of Latin American countries. There's a specific day that are set aside to celebrate the youth and the children in our community. And so this one is really honoring the traditions in Central America to honor and celebrate the youth. So really bringing in culture, tradition, celebration to just celebrate, a lot of the folks that we're going to be passing on these traditions to also empower them in their own identity as well.
Thank you for sharing those and all the work that goes into planning those community events and making them available to all of us. So we'll help lift those up and amplify them through our communication channels. Thank you. Are there remarks by my colleagues before we invite these fine folks up to get a photo with us? Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to bring this proclamation up. I think it's really important to celebrate. I guess I just go back from my experience of moving up to this state from California. And I didn't know I was different until I came up here. It was just normal things down there. I was seeing people who kind of looked like me in Southern California, and just these were normal things. And I went from Los Angeles to North Bend, Washington, a long time ago. And it was a cultural shock for me. And I remember Washington didn't have too many Hispanics, and my wife talks about the same experience because she had the same experience but moved to Tacoma, and even then there wasn't that many. You couldn't. There was no Me Centro. So things have changed a lot, and Me Centro's helped and other groups that came before them help people start some businesses here. There was no Hispanic businesses here in the early days, and I just remember feeling like not too proud about who I was being here in Washington State, but things have changed. I mean, you didn't want to have an accent. You wanted to speak English, and you kind of lost your language. And there's a lot of, second-generation Hispanics that were kind of raised that way in some aspects. Happened in Native American communities also, in some aspect. But we're getting back to our culture, right? While still being Americans or whoever we're from, we know where we're from. And I think it's really important to remember where we come from, because it can help us move forward in the future. A lot of us do gain strength from our ancestry. We all have specific stories how our family got here or the border changed, but our families talk about the stories, and we have stories, and we came from. I'm just always thankful. I'm thankful for being here. Thankful that I know I have food in my stomach. Thankful I have a job. Thankful my kids have opportunity to be whatever they want to be here in this country, because in some countries it's not like that, especially for a lot of Latin countries. So I'm immensely proud. Thank you for being here today. You're the face of Hispanic history is American history, and you're the face of it. So thank you for being here today.
Thank you for bringing this forward, Councilmember Herrera. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair, and my thanks to Councilmember Herrera for organizing and bringing such a wonderful group to come and celebrate this and acknowledge this month. I want to thank Me Centro for your partnership in two spaces that really have helped our community grow and come out of the pandemic healthier, and as we move forward to just really address some violence in our community, and that's the domestic violence work that you continue to champion and lead, so that we are working within the Latinx and Hispanic community to really work in that space. With trusted messengers and people who understand navigating those that are undocumented, those that are documented, those that are living here, those that are visiting here. Whatever the case is, violence isn't okay, and you've been able to help us as a government agency open some of those doors that were closed, and so just really want to acknowledge that. And then during the pandemic, your partnership with the health department to also help with vaccination, testing, and as the science was changing throughout the pandemic, we could lean on you to help us bring the community along and keep us safer as a community, because you had that relationship. And so I think every time we have a chance to acknowledge and celebrate the work of organizations like Me Centro and several others that worked what I call trusted messengers who are part of the communities they represent, we are stronger and a better county for it. So just want to make sure that I have the chance anytime to say thank you. I'm going to say it publicly, so thank you for that work. For those of you that weren't here in Me Centro before that, if you were just in the community, you've joined an amazing team, so thank you. And just excited to see and celebrate what we can do over this month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchin. Well, my colleagues said it best. It is so essential that we deliver culturally competent program to our community, and you're absolutely essential to that. It's so important, as Councilmember Herrera said, for folks to truly feel welcomed and belong here. They need to have a space, and they need to see others who look like them, talk like them, sound like them, celebrate like them. It is so essential. And you are really, as Councilmember Hitchin said, have been truly essential partners in delivering programs for our community, everything from business startups with the Business Accelerator program. Thank you for mentioning that. Domestic violence work. So many of the items that are so important to our region. We lean on you as an essential partner to be a trusted friend out in the community to get the word out and deliver program alongside us. So thank you for joining us and for what you do. We would love to invite you up. We probably can't fit all of you but up here, but if we could invite Maya and Adon up here and everyone else in front of us, in front of the dais, we would love to give you a proclamation and take a photo. Well, our next proclamation, the council will be proclaiming September 17th as Constitution and Citizenship Day and September 17th through the 23rd as Constitution Week in Pierce County. I'd like to invite the following recipients to the podium as Councilmember Cruver reads the proclamation into the record. They include Melanie De Leon with the Mary Ball chapter of the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution. And we have other guests from the National Society of the Daughters of the American Revolution, including Shannon Faria and Renee Christ. Welcome. And we also have Robert Edwin Donaldson, Commander of the American Legion, Mount Tacoma, Post 148, Edenville, National Vice Commander of the Scottish American Military Society. It's a really long title. Thank you all for being here. Councilmember Cruver.
Oh, thank you, Chair. A proclamation of the Pierce County Council proclaiming September 17, 2024 as Constitution and Citizenship Day, and September 17 through 23rd as Constitution Week in Pierce County, Washington. Whereas the United States Constitution was written in 1787, ratified in 1788, and has been the supreme law of the land since 1789, making it the world's longest surviving written charter of government. And whereas the United States Constitution remains both timeless and relevant, having been amended 27 times between 1791 and 1992, and whereas President George Washington, in his first inaugural address, described our constitutional republic as an experiment entrusted to the hands of the American people, and whereas the first three words of the Constitution, "We the people," affirm that the government of the United States exists to serve its citizens. And whereas for over 2 centuries, the Constitution has remained in force because the framers wisely separated and balanced governmental powers to safeguard the interests of majority rule and minority rights, of liberty and equality, and of the federal and state governments. And whereas amendments to our Constitution have worked to update and perfect language to include all who call the United States home and assure that all have equal rights under the law of our land. And whereas in 1940, Congress created I Am an American Day to celebrate U.S. citizenship. And whereas in remembrance of the signing of the Constitution and in recognition of the Americans who strive to uphold the duties and responsibilities of citizenship, the Congress, by joint resolution on February 29, 1952, 36 U.S.C. 106 as amended, and President Harry Truman signed into law Constitution Day to replace I Am an American Day, designating September 17 as Constitution Day and Citizenship Day. And whereas in 1955, the Daughters of the American Revolution petitioned Congress to proclaim September 17 through 23rd of each year as Constitution Week, which was signed into public law on August 2, 1956, 36 U.S.C. 108 as amended, by President Dwight D. Eisenhower. And whereas James Madison is recognized as the father of the Constitution, and Robert Frost, perhaps one of the greatest American poets, in plain words, captured the vision behind Madison's complex system of government, stating that self-control by both the individual citizen and by the majority is the essence of Madison's dream of Republican self-government. And whereas, as we honor our Constitution, we must also recognize the duties of citizenship, the Pierce County Council celebrates and recognizes the hardworking Americans who contribute daily to the strength of our nation, and recognizes the men and women who serve in our armed forces, especially those serving overseas and at Joint Base Lewis McChord, who are protecting and defending America. And whereas the Pierce County Council welcomes those who immigrate to this country legally and those seeking asylum, bringing with them hopes of achieving the American dream. And whereas on this day, we celebrate the citizens and the Constitution that has made America the greatest nation ever known. And we recommit ourselves to the enduring founding principles of the Constitution to thereby secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed on the 17th day of September by the Pierce County Council that September 17, 2024 is recognized as Constitution and Citizenship Day, and September 17 through 23rd is recognized as Constitution Week in Pierce County, Washington.
Let's give them a round of applause. Melanie, welcome.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Melanie DeLeon. I'm the Regent of the Maryball Chapter. And I'd like to give you a little information about the DAR because most of you probably only know us from the Gilmore Girls. And so I'd kind of like to fill in some gaps. For those who don't know, the Daughters of the American Revolution is a nonprofit, non-political, volunteer women's service organization dedicated to promoting patriotism, preserving American history, and securing America's future through better education for children. It was founded nationally on October 11th, 1890, and incorporated in 1896 by an act of Congress. Our motto is God, Home, and Country. The Maryball chapter was the first chapter in the state of Washington, and it was founded in 1894. So we just celebrated our 130th anniversary. DAR members volunteer millions of service hours annually in their local communities, including supporting active duty military personnel and veterans, of which I am one. We also award thousands of dollars in scholarships and financial aid each year to students and support schools for underserved children with annual donations exceeding $1 million. As one of the most inclusive genealogical societies in the country, the DAR has 190,000 members in 3,000 chapters across the United States and internationally. Any woman 18 years or older, regardless of race, religion, or ethnic background, who can prove lineal descent from a patriot of the American Revolution is eligible for membership. For example, my fifth great-grandfather fought in the Revolutionary War with the Virginia militia. In 1955, the DAR adopted a project to promote the observance of the U.S. Constitution with a Memorial Week beginning on the anniversary of the signing of the document today, September 17th. DAR petitioned Congress with a resolution to set aside September 17th through 23rd, dedicated for the observance of Constitution Week. The annual celebration was established when it was signed into law by President Dwight D. Eisenhower on August 2, 1956. The DAR has an actual building in Washington, D.C. called Constitution Hall, with an inscription that reads, Constitution Hall, a memorial to that immortal document, the Constitution of the United States, in which are incorporated the principles of freedom, equality, and justice for which our forefathers strove. The DAR Constitution Hall is the only structure in the nation dedicated to the U.S. Constitution. During this week, known as Constitution Week, DAR members across the nation are busy enlightening the public about historical events surrounding the establishment of the Constitution and the men who framed the document, using public service announcements, newspaper editorial opportunities, and social media. In fact, we just finished manning a booth for 4 days at the Puyallup Fair, handing out constitutions, bells to be rung today at 1 o'clock, and all sorts of information about our history. You may also see displays at your local library to commemorate the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. And of course, this afternoon at 1 p.m., our time, people and students all across the nation rang bells as part of the Bells Across America events in celebration of the signing of the Constitution. As you may know, the U.S. Congress established the United States Semi-Quincentennial Commission, and the DAR has a seat at that table. Our honorary President General is part of that commission. We call it America 250. And they are busy making plans to celebrate this momentous occasion in July of 2026. I know that the state has also created a semi-quincentennial commission in 2022. So there's more to come as we prepare for our celebration in 2026. Thank you so much for having us here today to celebrate this day.
Thank you for being with us, Melanie, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that so calls it the Puyallup Fair.
Hey, old habits.
Old habit dies hard. Any other guests wish to provide any remarks? We're glad you're here.
Yeah. Rob Donaldson, Commander, American Legion Post number 148, and National Vice of the Scottish American Military Society. Veterans have a unique connection to the Constitution. We swear not to protect the presidency, not Congress, not the Supreme Court, strictly the Constitution. We obey the orders of the officers appointed over us, but our primary job is to defend the Constitution. I have a personal connection with it in that I have ancestors and relatives that were involved in the ratification of the Constitution out of South Carolina and Virginia. The American Legion has children and youth programs that exist primarily to make sure that our comrades who died in arms did not die in vain. And one of those programs is the Constitutional Oratorical Speech Program. Any high school student can participate in it. The last winner came from Pierce County. She won a scholarship of $31,000. It's something I'd like to see more of the students in this county do. If they don't know what's in the Constitution, they have no idea how this country is supposed to function. The Congress that ratified it ties in with the Scottish ancestry. See, England decided that they wanted the Scots out of Scotland. So they shipped them to the colonies, most notably Canada and the United States. Well, these were all rebels. They did what rebels do. A third of the Congress that ratified the Constitution were Scots, or Scots-Irish. 60% of the Continental Army were Scots, or Scots-Irish. The ideals of this culture was brought forth. Individual responsibility, individual liberty, local governance. Probably one of the biggest flaws of the Scots were is we were never unified as a nation. We were always fighting. And of note here, Mr. Madison, when he wrote the document, he borrowed very heavily from the Iroquois Nation. So it has a Native American root as well. Thank you for
your service. Thank you for being here. Any other of our guests? Thanks all for being here to help us celebrate. Are there remarks by my colleagues before we invite these guests up for a photo? Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Just thank you for Councilmember Kruger for bringing this forward. You know, sometimes we've got to know where we came from in our history, and it's something that was probably taught to you when you were a kid by somebody who, you know, and someone was taught to them. And we have youth here today. You have scholarship programs that talk about it. These are the things that we need to continue to teach our youth, the importance of this document that has it really focuses on liberty and being free, because all throughout mankind's history, someone's always been oppressed at some point in here. And you talked about local governments at the grassroots level. It's best to make our own decisions of what's best for us. So appreciate you coming down and highlighting this stuff. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Kruger.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for your wonderful stories to tell. And I just learned about the ringing of the bell recently, well, like a few hours ago. So that had meaning. So I'm like, next year we'll have bells. Appreciate that. Yeah, and Rob, I'm so proud of my Scott-Irish background now. I had no clue of all of that in there, and maybe that's kind of what my rebellious background too comes from that.
My patriot was from Scotland.
Reference material on that is Mark of the Scots.
I'll have to look that up.
And it's astonishing, the contributions.
It's very interesting to learn those things, and you know, they didn't have the screen time to be distracted, and so they were able to learn, you know, more about themselves and having to learn more things about life. But I found a few things about history, you know, going back, things that, you know, prior to that I just found after having written it. But in 1919, the attorney Walter Evans Hampton observed the practice of certain patriotic societies that were celebrating September 17th. And then he was asking, why wasn't the celebration universal? In that year, 1919, 20 states proclaimed September 17 as Constitution Day. Then in 1939, Wisconsin directed local schools to sponsor a day of citizenship education. Then 1940 was FDR authorizing Congress for a proclamation the third Sunday of May to recognize and commemorate American citizenship. But that was changed in a conference committee to I Am an American Day, celebrating newly naturalized citizens and those who turned 21 because then they could vote. In 1944, Attorney General Francis B. Idle told an audience in Ohio that more foreigners had become citizens in the past year than in any year since naturalization began. That was pretty interesting. 1945, there was a newsreel that noted that more than 1 million New Yorkers gathered in Central Park to celebrate the day by welcoming new naturalized citizens and the 21-year-olds who are now assuming the duties and responsibilities of citizenship. I think they could buy cigarettes then, yeah. So in 1952, under Truman, Congress named it back to Citizenship Day and moved it to September 17th. So that way it was further away from other holidays. And then in 55 was when the Daughters of American Revolution petitioned Congress to set aside a week for national observance of Constitution Week. And that was adopted August 2 of 1956 by Eisenhower. And then in 2004, when West Virginia Senator Byrd urged designating September 17 to be Constitution Day and Citizenship Day, adding the requirement that federal agencies provide employees materials to study the Constitution, and the schools that receive federal funding teach, do the same for their students. And when I think back into what that day was like, or those, was it 6 months, I think, in forming this in the hot summer, and they're locked up in the room, and here are these men, big men, some of them, in wool, and wigs with dust, and I'm sure it was pretty stinky in there, and they still did what they did and gave us our republic form of government. So I appreciate you all taking the time to be here and share your stories and educate us, and thank you for your service. That's, without things that had been done in the past, we certainly wouldn't be here today. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Krueger. Thank you for being with us, the young people, everyone. We love having young people in our chambers. We so appreciate your service to our country and the education that you provided to us about your organizations, what you do. Our country's history is invaluable. And thank you for the community service that you provide our region. We'd love to invite all of you all the way up here to come and receive a proclamation and take a photo.
Chair. Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to recognize, I met with Daughters of the American Revolution cleaning tombstones, and that's another thing that they do in Roy, and it's really fascinating. Yeah, it's just a note. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Next on our agenda, I'd like to welcome our Chief of Administrative Services with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, and it's Chief Nick Hausner. We've asked Chief Hausner to give us an update on staffing and technology upgrades to help the department stay safe in the field and help community members be active participants in keeping our community safe. So, Chief Hausner, thank you for accepting our invitation here. The department's been very busy with resources that we've allocated to the department to improve the staffing situation and help improve public safety. And we want to have you give the council an update and also give the community an update. So
Thank
welcome.
you, Chair Mello. Chief Nick Hausner with the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, Chief of the Administrative Services Bureau. I've prepared a PowerPoint to walk through kind of where we're at with our hiring, training, and staffing current position and looking into the future of where our projections hopefully will show us in the near future. If we move to the next slide, just a comment on that. We're constantly looking at and reviewing and updating our standards for hire. For example, the CJTC recently lowered the physical fitness standards, eliminating the requirement for law enforcement deputies to complete a run portion, a 1.5 mile run and a 300-meter sprint. That was eliminated by the Criminal Justice Training Commission. Councilmember Herrera is thinking about a career change. There are still some physical fitness requirements that they do require, but in our review, we thought it important to still keep the run portions of that physical fitness. So it moves out of the testing phase and into part of the background phase of the hiring portion to join the sheriff's office. So new recruits still have to accomplish that run. But we constantly review those to make sure they're in line with our core values and recent trends and changes in the community. And as we move to the next slide, this is just a quick review. I think everybody's seen most of these slides already, but just a quick review about the timeline for hiring. It's about a 16-week process from the time that we get the list from the civil service, chief civil service examiner. So we get the list after the testing is completed, the written testing and the preliminary physical fitness test. And then that comes to us from Pierce County Civil Service, and those candidates that pass that testing move into the background phase. And as you move to the next slide, the first one is the background phase in corrections. So the orientation and the training and all that stuff after they get hired on. And as we move to the next one, this is the training phase for law enforcement. So the training and everything, plus the total background time is about 14 months for a law enforcement deputy as compared to 9 months for a corrections deputy. And that primarily deals with the length of the police academy and the corrections academy are different. And then we get into the meat of it at the next slide. And this next slide covers candidates processed and positions added and or reduced throughout the years. The graphic on the left indicates the number of positions added, FTEs added or reduced over budget years. So, for example, in 2018, we added 9 law enforcement deputies, 2 corrections deputies, and for example, in the 2022-2023 budget, we added 3 law enforcement deputies and 1 corrections deputies. And then the graphic to the right is a number of candidates processed throughout the years. And you'll notice that in around 2022-23 time, we had obviously a spike in the number of candidates processed due to our increased recruiting and hiring efforts. The bonuses that we provided for people to hire on is attractive to people. So laterals coming in with a $25,000 hiring incentive and entry levels with a $10,000. So. And then as we move to the next slide, the first one here is law enforcement current status of hiring, training, and our vacancies. So law enforcement budget FTEs is 326. We currently, as of yesterday, have 13 vacancies. We have 33 people in the training process. So those are people that are at the academy or in field training currently or just recently hired. We just hired 4 law enforcement deputies yesterday. So that's some of those people are not in the academy. Obviously, they're just brand new. So I'm going through that initial orientation. The unavailable of 15 is for people that are out on military assignment, FMLA, PFML, injured, and then that totals 65, which is a total of 18%. But the exciting news is down at the graphic down on the bottom right that shows our vacancies for law enforcement commission people at only 4% vacancies. So obviously our unavailable is currently at 22% there, and that's the total of that 65 people. A lot of people in training right now because of our significant hiring push. 4% is the lowest I've seen it in years and years and years and years for vacancies. So it's a good place to be. And just a side note on that, right now we have, don't quote me on these numbers, but it's about 15 lateral applicants with us that are looking to come to the sheriff's office, and probably about 50 entry-level applicants. We expect before the end of the year probably another 100 entry-level applicants before the end of the year. And then as we move to the next slide, this one is just over the years, our hires, separations, and vacancies, so you can kind of get a snapshot of where we are. You see in the more recent years in 23-24, our hires are surpassing our separations, so that's a good thing. In 22, separations overtook hires that year, but we're making a good comeback. And one that I'd like to point is that graphic on the left shows that since 2019, about 46% of commission staff have been hired since 2019. So a lot of newer people on the department right now. And the next slide is the same slide as we saw for law enforcement, but for corrections. A larger problem in corrections with hiring at 43 vacancies, or about 15% unfilled in corrections, and then 26% of their staff unavailable, again, for those in the training process and or at the academy or unavailable. And then the next slide, Corrections Bureau, also same slide as you saw for law enforcement regarding hires, separation, and vacancies. Hires in 23, you'll see overtook separations, and I believe we're on track to surpass that as well in 24 for corrections, and then a lesser amount, 39% hired since 2019 as compared to law enforcement, which was in the 40 percentile area. And as we move to the next slide, we're looking at staff that are retirement eligible for both law enforcement bureaus and the corrections bureaus. And you'll see in 2024, law enforcement has 89 individuals that are retirement eligible. And then as you move to 25, for example, it moves up to 94, and you'll see a little +5 there. That's because an additional 5 people become retirement eligible in 2025. So this is assuming that nobody retires across all those years. So it's just kind of stacking. That's why it just continually goes up. But obviously, we will have people retire. So, and then on the right graphic is how many future retirements we anticipate in 2024. So for corrections, they anticipate 4 retirements, and in law enforcement, we anticipate 12. And then the next slide is the meat of it, and that's our hiring projections. So the blue is the number of candidates that we expect to process in the remainder of 2024, and the number of hires we expect to get from those candidates before the end of the year. So in corrections, they expect to see 15 hires, and in law enforcement, we expect to see 10 hires before the end of the year. And that's all about staffing, and we can move into the technology regarding body cameras and tasers if you're ready.
There are questions about staffing before we move into some of the new technology being brought online. Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick question. These trends, I mean, we did amazing work in the last 12 months. I mean, from where we were 12 months ago to now is amazing. And of course, this council put some things in there to help you along to do that. Is other agencies seeing the same trend, or is it a direct link, a direct correlation of some of the things we've done?
My anecdotal observation is that we're doing better than other agencies. I primarily gain that opinion because of the number of laterals that are coming from other organizations that are wanting to come to our organization. And as a side note on laterals, they all don't make it. So our hiring standards are pretty high. We set a pretty high bar for people that are out protecting our community. You have to have people with the moral integrity and the skill set to be able to serve our communities fairly and justly. And we hold that standard very high. So not all lateral candidates make it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair, and continue to celebrate the good news. Can you remind me, and I think I know the answer, but just, is the training the same for corrections versus law enforcement, or as far as the time, the amount of time?
It is not. It is not. So the Corrections Academy is 10 weeks, and the Law Enforcement Academy is close to 5 months.
Okay.
So significantly longer.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question pertains to the budget that we currently are operating under, kind of capped the amount of deputies. Do you expect that to hit that cap in 2025? And are you looking to request more deputies after that?
Yeah, I was actually working with our budget and physical manager this morning on a supplemental budget request to add staff for next year.
Next year? Okay. So we can expect that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Chief Hausner, is I'm looking at the unavailables. So based on your knowledge, I doubt you have the specifics in front of you, but are these folks on military leave, or are they mostly out of commission because of an injury on the job, or can you give us a flavor?
I think we currently have 2 or 3 people that are out on long-term military assignment, and then a variety of people out on different types of leaves. So some people out on FMLA for medical conditions or injuries of some sort. Some people out on paid family medical leave under the Washington State program. And then some are on what we call light duty status. So they've been injured. They don't need to be completely off work, but they can't work the street or work their primary assignment. So we want to get some use out of them, so we'll put them on the desk taking reports over the phone, or if they're a detective, they might not be able to do field work, but they can do office work and help in the office. So we utilize them the best that we can, but if they're not available in a full duty status, they go into that unavailable category. So it's a variety of different issues.
Thank you for explaining that.
Absolutely.
Vice Chair Campbell.
Councilmember Morrell brought up a good question with the budget. You said that you're framing out an additional ask. Do you know about how many you're looking at asking for?
I believe it's 12.
Okay. When we did this budget, we reduced the number of asks from the previous budget, the number of deputies that we were looking for, kept the fiscal the same, reduced the number. And I remember there was conversation at that time that if this all works, we could be in a position where you have to come back and ask for more, and that there was concern among the council of why wouldn't we put that in the budget to begin with. So I think this will be heavily discussed. I would suggest meeting and discussing, meeting with council members early and discussing it early, because it wasn't a planned expenditure.
I understand the Sheriff's Department was mandated to reduce our budget by 2%, and the only way we could reach that mandatory reduction was the reduction of staff. We didn't have any place else to cut. So, we were mandated to make that reduction, and the only way that we could do that was by reducing the FTE count. And I think we made it clear when we presented that at some point when our hiring got to the point where we are, we anticipate hiring 10. We're at 13 vacancies. We anticipate hiring 10 people before the end of the year. That puts us at 3 vacancies, really getting close to where our full FTE count would be, minus the 12. And so that
I remember it very well.
Yeah, you guys supported us coming back up.
We'll probably be coming back, but we were working with the executive's proposed budget that mandated the cuts. And
exactly.
So hopefully we can get out of the mandated cuts that were put in the budget that was sent to us.
Understand.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Remembered another question that I just kind of wanted to get an update. I know that this council agreed to support an individual doing physical PT work, I guess, for staff. In other words, fitness coordinator to help with the emotional,
wellness
mental.
Coordinator, yes.
So how is that program working? And to address Council Chair Mello's question, as far as L&I, are we seeing any benefit off that?
Yes, I think we are. We're seeing a large group of, or large percentage of the department participating in before or after hours workouts that are facilitated by that wellness coordinator. So we're seeing, especially with the new hire groups, if you get in the routine of working out and that you get used to that. And so we're establishing that early on in the careers of deputies. So I think we are seeing benefit from that program. I don't manage that program, so I don't have all the ins and outs, but anecdotally, I believe that it's a beneficial program.
Okay. In the future, I would like to hear more about how that program is progressing. So
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks for asking about that investment we made in the wellness of our officers. It's a big investment, and we want to track its progress, and we want to keep our.
And if you don't mind, I'll just add on to that the program that we currently have called Rebound, which is it used to be called Tactical Athlete, and risk management invested in that program as a pilot to start, and we've seen significant reduced times of people away from work because of the quickness that the Rebound company can get our injured employees in to see medical staff, where you might, if you tore your rotator cuff at work, for example, normally the process for L&I is, well, you go see a doctor and then you wait and then you might get an MRI 4 weeks later, and the doctor will say, no, well, I want you to do physical therapy for 3 months first, and then, okay, that didn't work, and then you schedule your MRI, and then they schedule you out, and you get your surgery about 8 months later. And with Rebound, we've seen that our staff are getting into MRIs like within weeks versus months, and then they're getting surgery if needed a lot sooner, which means they're off work faster. We're paying less L&I costs, less overtime backfilling for that person, and they're back to work healthy sooner. So it's a great program.
Thank you for those examples. Let's move on to the technology upgrades that are being experienced.
So the first slide on that is the Axon body camera taser program. You'll recognize this slide from our original budget presentation. It's the exact same slide, so I just wanted to throw that in there kind of as a refresh of what we asked for there, and that was getting this third-party payback, updating our contract with Axon, getting an early upgrade of dash and body cameras, introducing the ALPR option for the dash cameras, which didn't exist previously, combining the contracts for both cameras and tasers. It was kind of bifurcated. We had to contract with Axon kind of all over, and we thought it'd be better to get it all under one within the IT budget. Some functionality that we got was automatic email regarding submitting and tagging videos, auto camera activation with taser activation. I think we were all excited to hear about that. The ability for supervisors to be able to live stream both body and dash cameras, and then increased transparency for both the taser and the cameras. And then the next slide kind of outlines where we're at now after we've implemented this program. And 316 body cameras have been issued, so everybody's got their brand new body cameras that have that increased view, better audio. So those are all issued to all commissioned staff, law enforcement commissioned staff. 237 vehicle camera systems have been installed and are in use, so that's all the vehicle cameras that just finished getting outfitted last month, so those are all out there. That third-party playback that I didn't really understand about I think you helped me out, Councilmember Mello. That's up and working, so the ability to be able to just take all these different types of video systems, bring them into the Axon system, and just have detectives be able to watch them without having to try and figure out how everything works. The ALPR is working in its use. It's been successful already. Multiple stolen vehicles identified and recovered with that system. We had one, I just asked for a few examples from staff, and there was one homicide investigation where that information provided key information that linked us to a suspect and facilitated an arrest on a homicide suspect. Several missing persons were located because of this, and or their vehicles were located at least. Since the upgrades, we've had 120,000 new videos recorded. The automatic email notification We were having some difficulty with staff forgetting to put in the data that they need to put in. So this automatic email notification that came with the upgrade has been super successful. 99% ID and categorization rate, which is phenomenal. It's working very well. And then regarding the tasers, almost all law enforcement deputies that carry a taser have been issued their new tasers. There's only like about 15 left that need to be issued and trained. And I don't carry a taser, but I went to the training just so I could learn how they work, and they're great. So they work really well. And then so far we've had, since the upgrade, 7 taser events. So I think I mentioned at my original presentation that now if you pull your taser out and you turn it on, it will automatically turn on your body camera, so deputies in a high-stress incident won't forget to turn on their body camera by double tapping this. And there's been 70 taser event videos, which doesn't mean that there's 700 times that they were have to do it. It means that 700 times the taser was used as a de-escalation tool or potentially deployed in an incident, and now the power on of the taser is recorded in the data set in the camera. So there's 700 times that occurred. So.
And for the public's benefit, you've educated council before that that is how the technology works with your guns.
Yes.
When your gun is pulled, it's automatically attached to your taser or your body camera, and the body camera turns on automatically. It was not that way with the taser technology, and so now whatever device is pulled, the body camera turns on automatically.
And just to clarify, it's not when the taser's pulled, it's when it's powered on, versus the pistol, it's when it's pulled. So
thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, because the taser is primarily made out of plastic, and it's a magnetic device that detects the pull, so there's no technology currently for a draw out of a taser holster. So it's when it's activated, the power sends a signal to record the device, record that it's been powered on, and activate the camera via Bluetooth. Scary.
Are there any questions about what we heard? Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe I didn't hear this. Pertaining to dash cameras, does all the vehicles now have dash cameras?
All patrol vehicles, so not like unmarked detective cars, but all patrol vehicles and traffic enforcement cars, yes, they do.
So you've installed as many as you're going to install? Yes. Okay. The other question I had is one of the kind of the unintended consequence, or the consequence of going to both dash body cameras, is the amount of record requests that it would generate. Have you been tracking that to see if that's really becoming an issue?
I suspect that it has been tracked. I don't have that information in front of me. The issue with recorded videos and public records requests, or providing that information for discovery potentially, is, especially for public records requests, is the redaction that's required. So it takes a significant amount of time to redact all the video of everything that needs to be redacted before it can be released to the public. And every time you respond to an incident, if there's more than every officer, patrol officer that responds, there's going to be at least 2 videos, right? There's going to be the dash cam and the body camera that need to be redacted. And then every additional officer that responded, that's 2 more. So 2 officers respond, it's 4, 3 officers respond, it's 6, and so on. So all of that redaction time, it's about, I recall correctly, and I'm shooting from memory here, so I apologize. I think it's about, for every hour of recording, it takes 4 hours to redact. So it's a significant volume of time, even with the auto redaction tools, because they have to review it all, and they have to, they have to look for juveniles, and they have to make sure that everything is done appropriately. So they have to watch the whole thing as well. So it just takes quite a bit of time. Okay.
And then I was just curious, when you pull a pen to write a ticket, does you activate your camera also?
Not yet, but you might have something there.
It's a mighty weapon, that pen. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, and thank you for your work on this. Glad to see that the body cams and dash cams are working out. Just a quick little policy question. If, say they were called to a hospital to come in and help secure someone, would their body cameras be recording in a medical environment, then everything's redacted, or are they turned off when they go into?
It depends on the circumstance. So if they're in, for example, a patient's room and they're going to have a private conversation with a victim or a suspect, they would probably activate their body camera. If they're just wandering around the hospital, likely they wouldn't. Or if they're just there in a routine kind of capacity, their body camera wouldn't be activated. So it really depends on the circumstances. But if it was on and it needed to be redacted, then it would. And, for example, the inside of private homes is required to be redacted. So that's not open for public consumption. So if I get called to a domestic violence call and I'm going inside the victim's home and I'm, walking around, that would all need to be redacted out.
Now, anytime they're escorting someone who is being detained or under arrest, are their body cameras on?
Their body camera and at a minimum their dash cam. And when we say dash cam, it's kind of doesn't necessarily mean just the dash cam. So there's a camera that goes out the dash, and then there's a camera that records the back seat as well, so that the prisoner in the back is being recorded the entire time they're being transported.
Thank you very much for all the work.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
On this, glad to see that the hiring goals are being met and exceeded. That was our hope when we put together the retention and recruitment package.
And I definitely understand the struggles that the council has with our asks, so I appreciate your guys' work.
Well, just happy to get them back up and going and get those slots filled, because ultimately that was the goal. And many of us were certain that you would reach those goals aggressively and quickly, and we welcome the challenge that it creates.
And we're currently out at the Washington State Fair, AKA the Puyallup Fair, with our recruiting booth is out there. So if members of the public are interested in joining our team, our recruiters are out there at the fair at this very moment, willing to take their questions.
And if they weren't out at the fair, how could they get hold of someone from your recruitment team?
Yeah, so if they go to our website, piercesheriff.org, and then click on the Now Hiring tab at the very top, it'll provide information about how to join our team and provide information about how to reach out to one of our recruiters.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Chief Hausner, one last question. Not sure if this is what you meant by third-party playback system, but one of the other things we authorized in the budget was some improved technology for residents or businesses' Ring doorbell cameras.
Yes, same thing.
Is that what we mean by third-party playback?
Yes, so they can submit that evidence via a web link, and then we can import that right into what's called evidence.com, which is the Axon platform for retaining evidence, and then it can be viewed via the third-party playback directly from there.
So when deputies are responding to a burglary or robbery or some of the property crimes, or any kind of crime, they'll give something to the resident and say, please upload the information.
Yeah, and our detectives will do canvassing of neighborhoods for crimes that may have occurred. You may have heard about the shooting up in Bonnie Lake recently, so they'll go out and contact neighbors that they see have Ring doorbells and say, hey, can you check your Ring doorbell? If you find something, please send it to us here.
Thank you. Well, thank you for coming this evening to give us an update. Good work on hiring and training. This is a lot of effort to do. Good news on law enforcement. We have some work to do on corrections to get our staffing up, but a lot of good progress being made, and good progress on implementing some technology upgrades that will help make lives a little safer and easier for those that are out and about. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I apologize for going over my allotted 10 minutes.
It's important information. Thank you.
That was on us.
Okay. The other reason we wanted the Sheriff's Department to come this evening is because there are 3 interlocal agreements with contract cities with the Sheriff's Department, and so we wanted the context to be before the council and the public as we consider those. So we're at Section 8, Resolutions. We have Proposal R 2024-195 before us. Councilor Denson for a motion, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I move proposal number R 2024-195.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-195. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-195, A resolution of the Pierce County Council authorizing the county executive to pursue disposal
Last
of
line, please.
36.35 of the revised Code of Washington.
Thank you. Mr. Boki to brief the council.
Thank you very much, Chair Mello, Paul Boki, council staff. This resolution will allow the county executive to dispose of certain tax title properties. These parcels came into possession of Pierce County for non-payment of property taxes. The subject properties include 4 contiguous parcels on the Key Peninsula. It's mainly forested property totaling 159.93 acres, and 1 parcel in a residential area in the city of Tacoma measuring 6,250 square feet. Under RCW 3635-150, subparagraph 1, tax title properties may be made available to local governments for public purposes. In this case, all 5 properties are proposed to be sold to public entities. The 4 properties on the Key Peninsula will be sold to Pierce County Parks, and the parcel in Tacoma will be sold to the city of Tacoma. So there's all sorts of information in your packet. There's orthographic photos, satellite photos. There's a map of the 4 parcels on the Key Peninsula. There's also, you should have a council briefing summary that you received from Parks that deals with a number of parcels. It's dated August of 2024. In that is the property on the Key Peninsula is called the Tiedemann property. I may be mispronouncing it, but Tiedman. That's because it's on Tiedemann Road. And in the second paragraph it says, currently the property hasn't been evaluated for future use or access. If these properties are removed from tax title status and fall under the custodial care of Parks, which I believe is going to be proposed, any future use would be subject to budgetary decisions, and any disposition of property valued greater than $25,000 would be subject to further county council actions, including a formal surplus ordinance. So, Mr. Steve Wambach from our facilities department is here to discuss. This was, by the way, this was given a due pass recommendation at the September 9th, 2024 Rules and Operations Committee meeting. We also have the Director of Parks and Recreation, Ms. Roxanne Miles, is also on the Zoom call. So.
Thank you, Mr. Boki. Let's turn to our Deputy Director of Facilities Management to see if he has anything to add on behalf of the department.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the council. I'm Steve Wambach. I'm the Deputy Director of Facilities Management. Thank you for taking up Resolution R 2024-195. Mr. Boki gave an excellent summary. I will be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you. Director Miles, do you have anything to add on behalf of Parks? You're one of the recipients of one of these tax title properties. Do you have anything to add?
Hopefully we address questions that came forward and included in the memo. We are happy to receive the parcels and take care of them and do proper stewardship. The Parks Department has had the Forestry Department, and so when we were asked to consider taking these and be able to take our preliminary assessment, which we did on behalf of the Facilities Department, and set up a stewardship plan for it, we were happy to do so. As we mentioned, it really is what we call resource conservancy. It's bringing it in and being custodians of the property. It has not been thoroughly analyzed to even look to decide whether it's a property we would need or want to open in the future. For context, I think because it is coincided with us fulfilling the proviso that asked us to look at the properties that the department owns out on the peninsulas and in the boundaries of other park districts. And so that's the broader context of the briefing sheet you're seeing. And we had discussed existing properties out there with the Key Peninsula Park District at the same time we were asked to take on Tiedemann. So we also did visit with them and ask whether they had interest in that property, which they declined at this time, any interest on taking on a large parcel. So we went ahead and included the notes on the Tiedemann property, so named because they are on Tiedemann Road, within that same park district parcel memo.
Thank you for adding that, Dr. Miles. Any council members have any questions before we open up for a public hearing? Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess this goes to Mr. Wambach. My question is, when was the last time an ordinance was presented to this council for surplusing these tax parcels?
For these specific parcels, I'm not aware that these 4 parcels have ever been brought before the council before.
Is that normal?
That normal? Yes, normally the council, we would go through and assess the status of parcels. There are approximately 400 tax title parcels that the county has inherited due to property owners' failure to pay their taxes as required under the law. And we will go through and assess those and periodically, usually on an annual basis, bring a selection of them to the council for an opportunity to either transfer them to a governmental agency for a governmental purpose, and we did that with the council last fall, or we would put them up for auction.
So these particular, I guess there's 5 parcels.
4, the 4 Tiedemann, and then the 1 in Tacoma.
You're saying they've never been put out?
No, the 4 in Tiedemann, those have been in tax title status for a long time. They had not been put out before. The Tacoma parcel was just acquired through failure to pay property taxes, I believe it was either November, December of 2022 or 2023. It was not in the path for the last time we were up here on this topic. So, this is the first time that parcel's been before you.
Okay. And when did we acquire that through tax foreclosure?
The Tacoma parcel or the Tiedemann parcels?
The Key-Pen parcels.
The Key-Pen parcels. So we do not have records in the facilities department that tells us that. Councilmember Krueger was happy enough to tell me that she heard from the assessor that we acquired them sometime in the 1970s.
And they've never been surplused out and offered to the public for sale?
No. My understanding is that at least once the county council voted to surplus the timber on those parcels because state law provides a mechanism to county governments that when they're required to accept these properties through tax foreclosure, state law separates the land from the value of any resources on that land. And so once in the 1990s, the council passed an ordinance to sell off the timber from at least one of the Tiedemann parcels. And I cannot be more specific on that because the parcels have been segregated and given new parcels numbers over time, so it's kind of hard to track the history that way. So we know there was a timber harvest authorized by the council around 1991. I am told, although I can't find a council ordinance saying this, that there was a timber harvest sometime in the early to mid 2000s, so around 2004, 2005. There was nobody in our real property program who was an employee of the county back then. So and I've actually been going through a bunch of archive boxes trying to see if I can find the records of that, and I can't find that either. But their received wisdom is that there was a timber harvest around 2004, 2005.
Okay, based on that, and that's what I've heard through the grapevine also, that it was logged off. Where did that revenue go?
As I said, since I cannot find the relevant files for that from the early 2000s, I was not part of that department then, and none of our current leadership was part of the department. We're still looking through some old archive boxes for that. I would have to make an assumption based upon some prior experience that money would have gone to the general fund.
Okay. I guess my last question to you, and I'm not saying that you're a land expert.
Thank you, council member.
Given proper zoning, is this land buildable?
Well, the land is currently zoned Parks and Recreation. It is in a rural area, so it would be the most dense zoning, I believe, would be rural 10. So put that aside. I'm not familiar enough with the underlying nature of the parcels. I know they're except in the northwest corner of one of the parcels, there is a stream that probably inhibits development. There's a lake just to the north of the parcels. Whether the eastern side of the parcels are developable, I'm not uncertain of that. Frankly, we do not generally assess that element of a tax title property.
I was just kind of curious. I assume on 159 acres, if it was zoned R10, there would be buildable sites that could be located on a large parcel like that.
I think that's a reasonable assumption. The only other thing I'll point out is, and I don't know if staff could bring up either the combined parcel map, you can see that it's actually 4 separate parcels. They are contiguous. Tiedemann Road intersects 3 of those parcels. There would be a lot of road building to do to build if you were building at 1 house per 10 acres. Unless you went through a development approach where you could mass those on one side of the parcel, you'd be dealing with some pretty significant road development to build out that site.
Okay. Okay. And then I guess my next question goes to Director Miles. We have been kind of disposing of all of our park assets on that side of the bridge pertaining to whatever was in the peninsula and the Key Peninsula Park District. What is the reason again that we are moving this piece of property, or why would we move this piece of property into stewardship at this time?
Yeah, as you mentioned, in the past, facilities management actually had the forestry program. They no longer do. And because Parks has the majority of the timberlands and the forester, we're really taking it on as stewards of the property, assumed to be in its natural state. The rest of the memo, as we mentioned, really spoke to whether or not Pierce County will continue to own and manage properties across the bridge. The only holdings that we have are pretty split, which are actually, it's the boundary between the 2 separate park districts out there, and the rest of the holdings are all in the Key Peninsula Park District, and we have a current ownership and obligation to develop and get public access to Devil's Head. So in terms of our current planning and need for level of service, Devil's Head is the priority project, and the next one you see up in the capital facilities plan. So at this time, we're really taking it to take care of it and make sure that that timber is protected and not subject to disease, but we're not recommending or looking to add it in terms of a developed managed park. We have to look at that and would be bringing forward through our PROS plan and through capital programs if there's any intended future use or change to its status other than us maintaining it. So there's more to come as the next step. I think the first step was just getting the parcel into our hands, because we do have the forestry program and the ability to develop a stewardship plan for the site to protect it. And it is currently zoned, as the assistant director mentioned, as park and recreation, and is managed for timber. When we get the parcel, we'll be able to do a deeper dive into getting as many of those holes in its background resolved so that we have a good look at the parcel. I think we do have other just natural state timbered property that is managed by the department or held for conservation that is not part of our developed park land level of service.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that answer. My other question pertains to, can you explain why Key Penn Park District doesn't want to take these properties right now?
Yeah, they're a small park district. One of the findings in there is, one, the unknown cost to operate, the inability to match the additional capital funding that it would take to develop it to the state that is needed. Getting public access in particular to Devil's Head is going to require some investment. They're a pretty small agency, and they are in the middle of updating their PROS plan. And in terms of where they believe they need property acquisition, and what their board had set as their growth is to expand some properties in other service gaps or make some of their current in-holdings larger. So they are finishing their update to their PROS plan. And as they do so, we'll be open to future conversations. But at this point, none of our properties were of interest or needed to fulfill the level of service goals that they've established for their district.
Okay. And there again, what does the Park District anticipate paying for these 4 parcels?
So,
No, go ahead, Steve.
Thank you, Roxanne. To remove these from tax title status, the Parks Department will pay $585 plus recording fees, which approximately will be $1,200 in recording fees to the auditor.
So on properties that are valued way over $1 million, they're going to pay $500 plus recording fees, and Key Penn cannot afford that?
I would have to defer to Director Miles to answer that question.
Yeah, I think there's 2 separate things, council member. One, really, this is a surplus directly, really, it's pulling it out of tax title. That is why it's going through an ordinance as opposed to the property just transferring from one county department to the other. So as noted in the ordinance, it wasn't put out for sale to ask who all might want it. My understanding is that the intent is just to get it to another county custodian as opposed to having any other determination that the property does not have value and should be surplus to a broader audience. Their concern is not about what it would cost to take it or buy the property if they were only charged removing it out of tax title. Their concern is how to manage 160 acres. They don't have a forester with that expertise, nor the ability at this time to say how they might want to manage it or operate it. So it really is just from facilities to parks, more to come, which it indicated that if we get to a place that that is not needed to be kept by the county, that Parks has done its assessment on it, there's not additional timber value, there could be a conversation about an outside surplus, which would then be an entirely different conversation and one that the council would be involved in.
Okay, one last question. This goes to Director Miles. Your experience in dealing with these large parcels, there comes with an expectation of access. How are you going to provide access to these parcels, and when is that access going to be granted?
Mm-hmm. As mentioned, there's a current expectation and a commitment because of the funding sources that we get the public access to Devil's Head, so that remains the #1 priority. There is a whole category of natural lands known as resource conservancy that are not necessarily destined to public access. That's where there would be a kind of a technical change of moving out of resource conservancy into an actual designation that the site should be developed into a park that allows for public access and future development.
Okay.
We have not yet made that determination.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Ms.
Yeah.
Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Coover.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for all of the information. I share many of the concerns, all of the concerns, Councilmember Morrell. And going back, Director Miles, what is the estimate in the cost to maintain these 160 acres under the management forestry plan?
So we have not yet developed the site plan, but for the most part, Resource Conservancy is more what we call responsive services. So we are out there looking at the health of the trees, and we are looking at how to just protect the property from mixed use. So that's a much lower per acre cost than if we were developing and operating the site as a park proper. So that is similar to our lands up in the Carbon and similar to Rimrock that some of you might not even be familiar with, that we really did get because they were transferred, they were county timberlands that were transferred to parks to then become the custodian of.
And Mr. Wambach, I'm wondering, this property, it was prior to 1974 from the information I'm getting from the assessor's office that this became a tax title. And I'm wondering, how did it get from a property owner who didn't pay taxes to a tax title into park land, park plan?
Okay. So I think the council member is asking, how did it get zoned as park and recreation? Is that what you're asking? So that was a recommendation that came out of the development of the Key Peninsula element of the comprehensive land use plan. That was not a proposal. Of the facilities management department, and I don't believe it was a proposal of the Parks and Recreation department either. That was something that was adopted by the council as part of the comprehensive plan.
And do you know what year that was? Would that be the 90s?
No, I think that was much more recent. I think that was in the last general update of the comp plan. So within the last 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years.
So this land was known of being a tax title of that value, and it was adopted into a community plan?
That's what it appears from reading the record, that's what this council did.
And my understanding, the 1.36 million, and I was told that actually that's now a low estimate. It's increased at least 10%, which who knows what it might go for on the market. I'll reserve the rest for a statement. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Denson.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Director Miles and Mr. Wambach for the explanation. I learned a lot, and this was very instructive. It's good to know that this isn't a normal thing that we do with tax title properties. It's also good for me to know, although I'm not surprised, that it was the community that put this land into park and recreational zoning. This community, cares a lot about the rural and agrarian landscape of the Key Peninsula. They care a lot about our aquifer recharge zones. They care a lot about wildlife corridors. So it's clearly what the community wanted when they proposed this for the comprehensive plan. And I know I've been talking to the community since this came to my attention, probably maybe a month ago, because I know I was at one of the Key Peninsula Council meetings. And of course, everyone's really excited about this as well, knowing that there aren't any real plans, like Director Miles said, except to steward and take the time to assess the property and figure out what the county parks department feels is an appropriate use. And I know that you all will do a great job of that as our forest stewards. I will note, and I think that the Key Peninsula Parks Director is on the Zoom. I don't want to put her on the spot. She'll probably make a public comment if she wishes. They are an outstanding parks district. They are such a great partner to the county and to the community. And I will tell you, I have great respect for the director, especially, and Roxanne Miles, I'm sure will agree with me, Ms. Perkowski she really believes in process. She really believes in planning. She really believes in public engagement and not getting ahead of herself and checking in with her commissioners and with the community. And so I don't know if this parcel has even been discussed. I know that they are in the middle of their capital facilities plan, because I just got interviewed the other day along with the Great Peninsula Conservancy in regards to, you know, open space as well as other capital facilities that you know, I could give feedback on based on things that I've heard in the community, and the Great Peninsula Conservancy, you know, gave their feedback as well. So I know the Park District, and I know the executive director, not to speak for her, is probably, you know, being real careful about over obligating themselves, because as Director Miles said, it is a smaller district, and they are very, very careful with their resources. They're very careful with their taxpayer resources that they've been granted by the residents. But I'm thrilled with this, and I'm really thankful to the county executive for recommending this particular way of addressing these long-standing tax title properties. I think it's really prudent that we keep these properties within the county because they are special, and I know that the Parks Department will give us ultimately a great recommendation of what we should do with them. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Councilor Denson. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Wambach, I just on earlier talking about timber harvests, and I think if you harvest over 5,000 board feet, that has to be reported to DOR. So they may have records of when this may have been harvested.
Maybe.
But maybe. Maybe. So this is transferring from, we've had one, facilities has been responsible for the care of this property for the last 40 years, 50 years. This will put it under parks for them to evaluate the usage of it. If after it's been in parks' hands for a while, then they're like, look, we can use this portion not, that could still get surplus to the public in a sale, right?
That is correct. The sale of public property comes to the council. The council would have to declare the parcel to be surplus to the county's needs, and then it could be sold.
And we could divide it up, work to redivide it up, because we need this much corridor for Devil's Head. We don't need all of this. It would be good. So we're preserving options here. Whereas if we went out, declared it surplus, sold it, and then needed a corridor, we'd have to buy it back at market rate.
That's correct. Although Director Miles can speak about this more specifically, but the Devil's Head parcel that she was talking about is not adjacent to these parcels. They're both on the peninsula, but they're not adjacent to each other.
But if we decided that a portion of this fits in with what we're doing, we could retain that, surplus off the additional. But if we surplused it all off, we would have to buy it back at market rate if we.
That's correct.
Okay. And I had a question on the Tacoma parcel, and I forgot it because I know it's next to a real big development already, but that has slipped my mind. So if it comes back, I will push my button again. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Coover.
Thank you, Chair. As I'm looking at the map for the area of these locations, there's so much forestry. I'm just amazed. There's not all that much development, at least from an aerial view of it. And where this parcel is located, I find it hard to see how this much land would make for more park area that would service a lot of people. I understand there's a lot of folks that live out on the other side of the bridge. But to take that land out of production or potential production, I think we need more time to weigh in on this property, where if it were a timber company that harvested, that generated the revenue for the schools and for fire and services of that nature, and replanted, when I think of what's been lost over the years because it sat there, I think there needs to be some more research and due diligence on this, because this looks very behind the scenes or negligence that could be misconstrued in ways that it shouldn't be. At least I am. To be sitting on that much land and not come up really to surface for over 50 years, that bothers me. And I don't think we're supposed to be in the industry of owning land like this. It's we're not supposed to compete. So I would like to make a motion to move this ordinance to October 1 for more research and information before, giving away this much land when our Parks Department has so much to do as it is, and we have so many projects that need tending and need dollars. Perhaps if there were the sale of this, it would be used to help benefit the Parks Department and complete the things that are already in process and in areas that are more neglected. When I see there's quite a bit of parkland, state land, county land already in this area.
Councilmember Coover.
That was a long motion.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
It was a long motion.
I got it. Councilmember Coover, do you have a motion?
I have a motion to continue this ordinance to October 1.
I'll second it.
Been properly moved and seconded to continue this to the meeting of October 1. Is there discussion on the motion? Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate all the interest in the properties in my district, and I obviously appreciate due diligence being looked at in regards to process, but we've been told by county staff that this is a normal due process of addressing tax parcels, tax title parcels. We've been told that it's the community that zoned this property Parks and Recreation. They didn't zone it for development. They zoned it for Parks and Recreation because these are the individuals that we vested with the authority to make recommendations to us regarding land use in their very own community. We hold, as a county, we hold forest lands, we hold park lands, but we also hold forest lands, which actually was kind of some new information for me. We've held this property for decades. The facilities department has held and been responsible for it. What we're doing today is simply transferring it to the agency that probably should have been holding it this entire time, which is the Parks Department, which does all of our forestry management. So to me, that is the responsible thing to do. It should have been done long ago. I don't think we should wait to do it any longer. And we've been told that the Parks Department will assess, will take care of it the way it should be taken care of, and at some point is going to come back to us with a recommendation about what they feel should be done with it. And I'm sure they'll do that in conjunction with our local parks district and with the community. And at that point, if the decision is to surplus it, then we'll have that debate. But until that point, this is absolutely in line with the way we've done business for many years, according to our staff. And so I would ask people to vote no on this amendment, and let's move forward to make sure that this land is taken care of in the manner in which is most healthy for my district. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Denson. Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you. This isn't the only thing in this motion. There are an important parcel in East Tacoma that is part of this that I know the city of Tacoma has been working with. It's become a problem property. I think if we don't get it out of our hands, we're going to incur a lot of cost with potential cleanup and other issues that have been happening in that Gulch area. The city can't get in there. The county's not taking responsibility. We either need to send some teams in there to clear it, clean it, and do all that if we're going to delay it one more day, or we need to move this on. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Campbell. Any other debate on the motion to continue to October 1? Councilmember Coover.
Thank you, Chair. So we can pass this and then we can make an amendment to it to take out the Tacoma parcel. And if 2 weeks, I don't think is going to make that big of a difference on that. And, there are laws and things that we can do, but just because we can doesn't mean we should. This is serious property when there's over $1 million and probably over $2 million in sales that could be done on that. And the harvesting of that could be used for generating jobs and products to sell, and to have it sit there and do nothing but wait for a time when we can address it to where we can get access. We have so many properties now that need that access and something that can also affect more people. I know in the 3rd Council District, it's kind of the stepchild. We have fewer services. It's one of the growing areas. I have Frontier Park, and there's no room for expansion on that. Yeah, this should have gone to auction a long time ago, in my understanding. It never did. And we have not done a service to our constituents by holding back a property just because it's got lots of trees and it's real pretty. It's not the only place that we have that all over. A passive park, yeah, is what it would probably be. We have lots of passive parks. And to wait for 2 weeks to get some more research on this, I don't think after it's been over 50 years, I don't believe that is going to make a dent in things. We can feel more comfortable with the decisions that are being made on this particular parcel that's way out, which is a lot of land and could benefit the county in other ways. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other debate on the motion to continue to October 1? I'll be voting no on the motion to continue. I think we're prepared to do a public hearing today and see what we do with the underlying bill and request from the executive. So I'll be voting no on the motion to continue. Seeing no other hands, all those in favor of the motion to continue to October 1, the meeting of October 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Those nays say nay. Nay. The motion is not adopted. We have this proposal in front of us, and we're going to do a public hearing. Does any member of the public wish to provide any comment? I'm seeing only county staff here in council chambers. So let's move to the Zoom room. Mr. Dominique.
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-195, please press the raise hand icon on Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. We have 2 hands at this time. First, we have Nancy. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Nancy, and I definitely support looking into that property a little bit better before making any decisions with it, especially because it has a river running through it, or like a creek and a lake, and water sources are invaluable, and once you sell that or log that, you could disrupt that ecosystem. And so I just think that maybe there should be some investigation before doing anything with the property, for sure. I also had a bunch of questions and comments about the resolutions 96, 97, and 95. Get to say it then. It's now a good time for that?
No, it's not. We'll do public hearings with those resolutions individually, so you're welcome to weigh in when those resolutions are before the council. We'll have another public hearing later.
Oh, okay. Because it was presented earlier, I thought the public hearing for that was then. But okay, so yeah, that's my vote. Look into it a little bit further before making a decision.
Thank you for your comments.
All right, next we have Tracy. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Tracy Prokofsky, and I am the Executive Director here at Keep Parks.
Tracy, excuse me, you're really soft. Do you think it's on her end, Mr. Dominique? Tracy, we suspect it's on your end. We really want to hear you. So if there's anything you can do to speak louder into your device, we really want to hear you.
Thank you, Chair Mello. I hope I'm more easy to understand as I'm shouting at you. I'm here testifying in support of R 2024-195. There are extensive development and growth pressures here on the KP, and I believe that we should do all that we can to support land conservation and protection to better preserve our rural character. There are a lot of concerns here on the peninsula regarding water availability and septic, so additional growth is always challenging. I'd also like to point out that when you look at aerial photos, a lot of the places that are covered with trees actually do have houses. It's just we have a lot of tree cover here. I'd like to highlight that there are immense benefits for forest and wildlife habitat, including carbon sequestration and needed habitat, which is disappearing each time there's a clear cut here. There are some older trees on that property which you're discussing, which are increasingly rare not only on the KP, but also throughout Pierce County. We strongly support the sale of this land to Pierce County Parks and also suggest that a conservation type easement be created to maintain the wonderful forest and habitat on this land. I also learned today, like many of you, that knowing that our community here supported placing this into Parks and Rec zoning through the community plan speaks loudly about our support for open space and commitment to forested spaces. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
There are no hands at this time, Chair.
With no further hands, we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? Vice Chair Campbell.
Thank you, Chair. I want to thank the executive and his office and facilities and their office on working on this. I am reminded if the resolution is approved, these properties are removed from tax title status, fall under the custodial care of parks. Any future use would be subject to budgetary decisions, and disposition of property greater than $25,000 would be subject to further county council actions, including a formal surplus ordinance. So this keeps it fully under the control of county council. What we're doing today, we could come back in just a few weeks and still surplus it out. So this doesn't put us in a irrevocable position. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Morrell.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will continue the discussion on this particular resolution. I obviously would have preferred that this had gone through and followed normal surplus processes. I think this is an odd situation to be in on such a large parcel. Mr. Wambach did address that the county does hold in tax title certain parcels that they deem necessary for the public, mainly their road easements and other things that I've seen. I very rarely have seen such a large parcel. And I think there again, we owe it to the public of Pierce County that we pursue the highest and best use for this type of property. I understand why people on the Key Peninsula would like to preserve this property. I've got several parcels in my area, large parcels that the community has taken ownership of, and they do not want it open to the public. And I think Director Miles knows which ones I'm talking about. So the other challenge that I look at is when I looked at the property, there again, I haven't walked it, whether it be R10, R5, R20, these are buildable lands. And I think that we need all types of housing in Pierce County. We've requested that as being a priority. And this particular parcel is a buildable piece of property given the zoning. Now, I know it's been rezoned to park, but it hasn't always been that way. And, you know, there again, the Key Peninsula values this piece of property or the Key Peninsula area. I would rather it move into stewardship with them so the county doesn't have to invest in parcels of property that really have no connection to anything, any asset that we have over there. So I am not supporting this, and I would have liked to have further debate on it, but this council decided against that. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Denson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to again thank county staff and the executive's office, and also thank Executive Director Prokosky for joining us today. I know she's in the middle of not only the capital facilities plan and a pros plan, but budgeting. So thank you for taking your time. They have very few staff, and she does a lot, within that small park district. I just want to repeat what I heard earlier from county staff, that the way we're addressing these parcels is part of the county's normal process. We heard that the county has over 400 tax title properties that they occasionally go through and assess. Some are transferred to governmental agencies for a public purpose, and some are surplused. These are properties that the professional staff have said should be transferred to governmental agencies for a governmental purpose, and I absolutely am supportive of that assessment. We've also learned that the Key Peninsula community in which these parcels lie have told us recently what they want to see here in regards to this property, and that is Parks and Rec, that is open space. And I was hired by the people of the Key Peninsula to represent their interests, and that is what I'm always going to do. We don't know what this property ultimately will be. We don't know if the Parks Department, as they develop their capital facilities plan, and now that they know the community plan included a desire for this to be Parks and Rec, it may go that direction. Our Parks Department may do an assessment and come back to us with something completely different, and then we'll have that discussion and debate as well. We do have other assets as a county on the Key Peninsula. We have a number of other properties, so it's not unusual for our wonderful county park staff to be out there, and they are strong partners with our park district. I'm very proud of that partnership. I'm finally just going to end with something that I hear from a number of my constituents, and that is that the highest and best use is not always development. Highest and best use is not only the financial gain by clear cutting and developing property. Sometimes the highest and best use is preserving our aquifer and our water resources, or protecting our water quality along our shorelines, and we know we've got issues of that in my district and around the shorelines of Pierce County. Sometimes it's preserving the becoming more and more rare wildlife corridors and the health of our environment and the carbon sequestration that Department Executive Director Prokosky mentioned. Sometimes it's taking into consideration the traffic concerns and the congestion that we have in this rural area that has grown way more than was anticipated in the last 10, 15 years. So for all of those reasons, I also think we need to take our time with our property. I think it will be stewarded well with our county parks department, and I'm really grateful to them because I know they've got a lot on their plate. I'm grateful to them for taking this on and making sure that we make the best decisions with this precious property. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Denson. Councilor Coover.
Thank you, Chair. I'll just say I don't begrudge the folks out there at all for wanting to have this property for a park or for a future park. It's quite the deal. But also, I believe we have a need for housing stock, and if it is perhaps conducive to that, we need that for the situation that we are in now, when there are not enough homes for the folks that are living here now. And also the sale and consequent use of that land doesn't mean it's going to destroy wildlife habitat. We're very good at doing that nowadays. And the revenue generated could be used to invest in the parks that we have, making them better, and also for getting more land later. But if we continue to put a stranglehold on all of the ways that we have to generate revenue to pay for government, we're not going to get very far. Down the road, in a few years, we're looking at our expenses being greater than our income, and we need to be cognizant of that. For those reasons, and not being allowed to do a little bit further research on this, I will not be supporting this ordinance. Thank you. Resolution. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Coover. Any other final remarks? We'll definitely appreciate the questions and the debate we've had today. The Executive Department staff making themselves available to answer the questions to the best of their ability. As has been noted before, this is I think, a straightforward action that is being recommended by the executive to transfer this ownership to the appropriate bodies, in one case to the city of Tacoma, and in another case from facilities management to Pierce County Parks, who is, no offense to facilities management, they're entirely capable, but Pierce County Parks has the ability to steward such a forested property of open space. And as Councilmember Denson continues to remind us, that action in particular is wholly consistent with the adopted community plan for the Key Peninsula. And so for those reasons, and I think this has been well thought through by department staff, and we had the ability to get our questions answered at committee, and here again today, I don't see the council getting any more information that's going to change its mind, especially when it's wholly consistent with the community plan for the Key Peninsula. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-195?
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morrell.
Nay.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Nay.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 5 ayes and 2 nays.
On a vote of 5 ayes and 2 nays, the resolution is adopted. We're at Resolution 2024-196. Councilmember Herrera for a motion, please.
I move proposal number R2024-196 for approval.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-196. Madam Clerk, please read the title into the record.
Proposal number R 2024-196, a resolution of the Pierce County Council granting the Pierce County Executive authority to execute an agreement titled Interlocal Agreement between Pierce County and City of University Place relating to law enforcement services, terminating any prior agreement between parties for law enforcement services, and requesting that the Finance Department post said agreement on the county's dedicated interlocal agreement website.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly to brief the council.
Thank you, Chair Mello. For the record, Andrea Kelly, council staff. As the title indicates, what you have before you is a proposal for a new interlocal agreement between Pierce County and the City of University Place for law enforcement services. This staff report will mimic an upcoming resolution, 2024-198, which is the interlocal agreement for the City of Edgewood. The Sheriff's Department is in the process of updating all of their interlocal agreements, so council members are going to become very familiar with this language in the next few months. The updating of these interlocal agreements is going to provide consistency across agreements, consistent rates for services rendered, modernization of language, updates for advances in equipment technology, the inclusion of clauses which reflect service deliverables and expectations regarding staffing fluctuations, transparency and ease of access for council members and the public alike, with the execution of new interlocal agreements as opposed to multiple amendments to interlocal agreements, and will include duration dates pursuant to the Interlocal Cooperation Act. So in regard to this resolution, which begins on page 77 of your electronic packet, the services that will remain the same for the City of University Place are patrol and enforcement services, sergeants, supervision, hiring practices, investigation services, continued use of South Sound 911 for records management and maintenance, specialized services such as SWAT team, hazardous devices unit, swift water rescue, canine search and rescue, and additions or changes that are under this, or updates that are under this new interlocal agreement include the addition of an administrative professional staff and office assistant that will support the unit, optional services such as that would be available to the city, such as school resource officers, community liaison deputies, traffic deputies, and investigator deputies for an additional charge, and when reasonably allowed by staffing. Special assignments, which is in which the Sheriff's Department may temporarily assign an employee for another purpose, therefore not performing services for the city should the need arise. And then staffing vacancies, or additional information regarding staffing vacancies. So in the event that the Sheriff's Department incurs a significant increase in staffing vacancies, the Sheriff's Department has the authority to reasonably reduce service levels in the city, and that the reduction in service levels would not be construed as a breach of the agreement. Additionally, to address a question that came up in study session as well today, in discussion about what the process would be if a budget deficit is created. There's additional language now in the ILA which establishes that the cost of services are to be adjusted each year based on the previous year's consumer price index for all urban consumers. Any cost adjustments would be negotiated by the Deputies Guild and Labor Management and would be consistent across other contracts for law enforcement services. Additionally, if there are extraordinary expenses that would not be covered within the annual CPI, the county will seek to work with the city to negotiate a rate so that the county does not suffer a financial loss for those extraordinary costs of providing the services covered under the agreement. Through this ILA, the county maintains as an independent contractor, retains all authority for hiring, supervision, discipline, rendition of services, standards of performance, and control of the Sheriff's Department personnel. The ILA contains language regarding administration of the agreement, termination of the agreement, and an indemnification and defense clause. Risk management, civil division of the prosecutor's office, and council legal staff have reviewed the interlocal agreement. The proposal was reviewed at Rules and Operations on August 26th, was forwarded to council with a due pass recommendation. Both the fiscal and equity notes are available, and there is one amendment that I can brief on when appropriate. Department staff is available for any additional questions, and I can help answer questions as well. This proposal is before you for final consideration, and I will stand by for further direction.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. We have the Chief of Staff from the Sheriff's Department here. Do you have anything to add on behalf of the Sheriff's Department?
Good afternoon to members of the council. Again, my name is Lauren Wallen. I'm our Chief of Staff for the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. Part of those responsibilities are grants and contracts. I just want to say thank you to all of you for your extensive time over the past several weeks in reviewing this and really being deeply engaged in what this process looks like. I also want to pass along a sincere thank you to your council staff. I mean, what an outstanding brief by Ms. Kelly, to risk management, to legal as well. They have been great partners in this, and I've just really respected and valued stakeholders throughout this process as we bring together all the different departments to update this really important agreement. I do think it's very ironic that I'm here today to talk about a very old document on Constitution Day. When we're talking 1997 document, I think that's old, certainly in comparison to a 1787 document, which is probably the most important contract in the history of the United States. It is rather ironic. So suddenly not so old agreement. But we are very excited to be here today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Wallen. Any questions for the Sheriff's Department or for our staff before we consider Amendment 1? Councilmember Herrera.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick question. Is there any additional or any less services in this ILA from what we had before?
Great question. So this is really a continuation of the services that we've been providing for the City of University Place dating back to 1997. So that is it is essentially renting a police department from the Sheriff's Department. So that's going to be their patrol deputies. As mentioned, they have an office assistant that's there. That's going to be your sergeant supervising those deputies and also their chief as well. We also provide their investigative services for them as well as specialized services responses as needed to emergencies within the city. So it is a continuation of that. We do know that the City of University Place is looking to expand their police department in the very near future, due in part to a public safety levy that was recently passed. And that was, again, an investment that was coming both from within their residents and also the city as well to do so.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councilmember Hitchin.
Thank you, Chair. Just for the public that may have tuned into the first part of the presentation, how are vacancies in our contract cities accounted for with the vacancies within the Sheriff's Department?
And that's a great question. And I think an important thing to note in that is that we're looking at them in a different way than maybe they previously reviewed over the history of this. And what we're looking to do is really to provide that balance. So we look at things like call volume and population, and that helps us to determine where we hold vacancies and where we fill positions. We're very excited to say that, as you've seen from the report from Chief Hausner, that we're in a place, I'll be honest, I didn't think we would be in this position at all. I had hoped and prayed that within my career we would be in this position that we're at. It's very, very exciting. To say the least, I'm extraordinarily proud of the efforts that have been done by our recruiting and hiring units, and all of our deputies and all of our department members, and also this council in advocating for this being a great place to work and this being a great community to serve. So we're very excited that we're here today showing you these numbers and that we are able to provide that balanced approach to filling vacancies, not only in the cities, but especially in Central Patrol and in our detachments as well.
Okay, and then my second question is, we have command staff at each of our contract cities. How do they work with the sheriff versus a city manager? Because that's a little different.
So each of those contract chiefs that are in these entities, they are members of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department. So that might be either a sergeant or a lieutenant who works for our department and is under the direct supervision of our chief of patrol, which is Chief Patty Jackson. And they work for the Sheriff's Department. They do have a balancing act because they do also serve and represent the city as well. And I will say that we've got some outstanding chiefs serving in the city of University Place and the city of Edgewood, and also representing us as a contract chief for Pierce Transit, that do a really great job of understanding the big picture and serving both Pierce County and also the city that they represent.
Okay, thank you. And I already knew the answers to most of those, but I just wanted to make sure that the public was along for the ride. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you for asking those. We get those kinds of questions all the time. And so thank you for asking and answering those important questions about how we deliver public safety services here in Pierce County. Any other questions? Okay. Councilmember Herrera to move Amendment 1, please.
Chair, move Amendment number 1.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Amendment number 1. Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. Let's see. In Amendment number 1 that you have in front of you allows for the department to be able to update the cost sheet without having to go through the entire council review process. This language mirrors the language that was presented to the contract cities in June. The language in the amendment is contained in the transit ILA and will be included in all future ILAs for law enforcement services at the advisement of legal counsel and the direction of the finance department. Essentially what happened is there were multiple versions of the ILA, and unfortunately one that didn't have this clause was what was uploaded in the original proposal.
Thank you. Was always meant to be there?
Yes.
We're making sure it's there. Any other questions about Amendment 1? We'll take a voice vote on the adoption of Amendment 1. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The motion is adopted. We now have Resolution 2024-196 before us as amended. This is a public hearing. Not seeing any members of the public in council chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-196, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have one hand at this time. Nancy. Get out of here. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Nancy, and I was going through the documents that were submitted for this, and what I didn't see was the dispatch anywhere in the budget or mentioned in the contract. In fact, the word dispatch was only used 4 times throughout the entire document. And when it was 3 of them were in the same sentence. It also states that South Sound 911 is used for records and like a few other things, but it doesn't mention that South Sound 911 is used for dispatch, which I don't know about University Place, but in Tacoma, South Sound 911 is the company that dispatches our officers. And so I'd only assume that they would also dispatch for University Place, but it wasn't mentioned in the agreement anywhere, and I felt maybe that should be addressed. Especially because if they're using 2 agencies, like one for medical calls, which don't get a police response or investigated even if the person dies, and the others are police calls, or if they're going to use the same people, I just felt that it's really important that if you're going to sign an agreement, it should mention who is going to be dispatching, who is going to be dispatching what types of aid and dealing with the 911 calls. Because, again, medical calls don't get police investigations even if the person dies, So it's really important that we have a company that we trust and know will, dispatch the right people to the right types of calls.
Thank you for your feedback.
There are no more hands at this time, Chair.
Thank you. Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. For the public comment, for your information, you're absolutely right. Southside 911 does do all dispatch for law enforcement, fire, and medical. I'm going to ask Ms. Wallen, just for the record, is there any confusion whatsoever about who does dispatch for the Sheriff's Department or the contract cities? For the record, she's shaking her head no. There's no confusion whatsoever that Southside 911 does do dispatch for sheriff's, law enforcement, contracts, for good measure.
Thank you again, Lauren Wallen with the Sheriff's Department. To answer that question, if you look at the exhibits that are attached to this ILA, it actually specifically mentions South Sound 911 in there. It's a pass-through cost reflecting that South Sound 911 will be the provider for continued dispatch services and records management. That's for our contract cities as well as for unincorporated Pierce County as well. And the chair was correct in that they provide that for all within the county.
Thank you for confirming that. Are there any final remarks by council members? Not seeing any. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department, all the many stakeholders that it takes a lot to manage these contracts and support the staff to get an agreement, in this case with the City of University Place. So a ton of work has gone into this. The public only sees a few short moments. Behind the scenes, there are literally months and months of staff time and energy and relationship with, in this case, a city like University Place to get an agreement in place so that we can provide public safety services in partnership with the City of University Place. You in particular, Chief of Staff Wallen, have done an excellent job of being point on this. So thank you very much for your leadership. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-196?
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The results of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. We're now at Resolution 2024-197. Councilmember Herrera for a motion, please.
Chair, I move proposal number R2024-197 for approval.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-197. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-197, a resolution of the Pierce County Council repealing the agreement titled Interlocal Agreement between Pierce County and Pierce Transit relating to law enforcement services.
Last line, please.
Website.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, to brief.
Thank you, Chair Mello. For the record, Andrea Kelly, council staff. This interlocal agreement, similar to the last one, some differences is, and we'll go over those, is relating to Pierce County and Pierce Transit for law enforcement services. This begins on page 111 of your electronic packet. This new interlocal agreement has a termination date of December 31st, 2025 at this time. Originally, this was submitted by department staff as an amendment. Council's legal staff, for transparency purposes, rolled it into the repealing of the prior interlocal agreement and issuance or execution of a new interlocal agreement. But the scope and services authorized and staffing levels from the Pierce County Sheriff's Department within the new interlocal agreement remains the same as the prior agreement. Some highlights for amending the prior agreement is the addition of Section 3G, which is adjustment to rates and services, which allows the parties to negotiate an annual rate and service adjustments and execute written agreements that reflect those agreed upon adjustments, again, so that the department doesn't have to return into the council review process annually while the contract is in effect. And then the only two other adjustments were the adjustments to Exhibit B and C, which updates the cost sheet for 2024. There is also an amendment for this resolution. The proposal was reviewed at Rules and Ops on August 26th, was forwarded to council with a due pass recommendation. Again, department staff is available. I'm available for questions if there are any, and we'll stand by.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Ms. Wallen, anything to add on behalf of the Sheriff's Department?
Again, I just want to thank council staff and council members for your time in reviewing this. We appreciate it, and we're welcome to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Questions before we consider Amendment 1? I don't see any. Councilmember Herrera to move Amendment number 1, please.
Chair, I move amendment number 1.
Second. It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Council Amendment number 1. Ms. Kelly.
Thank you. This is a technical amendment with no changes to the scope of services or the direct services. The department submitted, as I indicated, the proposal in the electronic data sheet as an amendment to the original interlocal agreement. For continuity and ease of access, council legal staff changed the amendments to repeal the prior ILA, execute a new agreement. Under further review, we realized the original ILA indicated the year 2023 as reflected in the exhibit, so this just updates that 2023 to 2024.
Thank you. Questions about Amendment 1? Seeing none, we'll take a voice vote. All those in favor of adopting Council Amendment number 1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is adopted. We have Resolution 2024-197 before us as amended. We're going to open up for a public hearing. There being no members of the public here in council chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room?
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-197, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. There are no hands at this time, Chair.
Seeing no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Final questions or comments by council members? Thank you again to the Sheriff's Department. This partnership helps make sure our transit system is safe. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-197?
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Morell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Kruger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson.
Aye.
Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. Our final resolution this evening is Resolution 2024-198. Councilmember Herrera for motion.
Chair, I move resolution R 2024-198 for approval. Excuse me.
It's been a long day.
Yes.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Resolution 2024-198. Madam Clerk, please read the title.
Proposal number R 2024-198, a resolution of the Pierce County Council granting the Pierce County Executive authority to execute an agreement titled Interlocal Agreement between Pierce County and the City of Edgewood relating to law enforcement services.
Last line, please.
Interlocal Agreement website.
Thank you. Ms. Kelly, to brief the council.
Thank you, Chair Mello. In the interest of time, this interlocal agreement exactly mirrors the City of University Place interlocal agreement. So if the council would like me to, if the chair would like me to review it in detail, I'm more than happy to do that. I don't want to slight Edgewood at all. They are just as important as University Place and any other area served by the Sheriff's Department.
You want to just jump to the staffing numbers? They are different sized cities, therefore they have different staffing.
They are. So this interlocal agreement accounts for 15 FTEs, 14 commissioned officers for the City of Edgewood. The agreement has a commencement date of April 1st, 2024, at this time extending through at least December 31st, 2030. And there is also an amendment for this as well.
Thank you. Questions before we offer Amendment 1? Councilmember Morell.
Thank you. I do have a question pertaining to some questioning that Councilmember Hitchin had brought up. With these city jurisdictions, do they have chief of police?
Lauren Wallen from the Sheriff's Department. To answer your question, their chief of police is a contract chief of police. So their chief of police is a member of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. So the chain of command comes from the chief of patrol, which we all know who that is, to the communication to the chief of police, and then pretty much between sergeants, lieutenants, and deputies.
The contract chief directly is supervised and directly answers to the chief of patrol for the Pierce County Sheriff's Department.
Okay. And then my last question pertains to, we were just given a presentation on technology. Does our deputies come with all the technology that was listed? And so I have a follow-up after that, but.
So for all of the deputies, and that includes not only the patrol deputies, but also your investigator, if you had a school resource deputy, if you had traffic, their sergeant, and their contract chief. As members of the Pierce County Sheriff's Department, they have the same equipment, the same training, the same technology as all of our other patrol deputies do.
Okay, so let's say a city council says they don't want automatic license plate readers in their jurisdiction. Is that something that could be done?
No.
Okay. Okay, so that comes with
Correct.
the package.
Correct.
Okay. And then in jurisdictions that have traffic cameras, do deputies have to have more involvement with those traffic cameras than usual, or is that something that's handled by internally in the prosecutor's office and the deputies don't get involved?
That is a partnership program where both the city and the department and the deputies that are there both work in conjunction for that.
Okay. So it's an understanding that that's part of the deal.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for those questions. I don't see any other questions, Ms. Wallen. Thank you. Councilmember Herrera to move Amendment 1, please.
Chair, I move Amendment number 1.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded that we adopt Amendment number 1. Ms. Kelly to brief.
Thank you, Chair Mello. This, again, is an amendment to include a clause that was always intended to be in the original interlocal agreement, allowing the department to update the cost sheet without having to go through the entire council review process. The language mirrors the language that was presented to the contract cities. And that's it. Thank you.
Any questions about Amendment 1? Not seeing any, we'll take a voice vote on the adoption of Council Amendment number 1. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion is adopted. We have Resolution 2024-198 before us as amended. There remains no members of the public here in council chambers. We'll move to the Zoom room for the public hearing. Mr. Dominique.
For any member of the public that would like to provide comment on proposal number R 2024-198, please press the raised hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. And we have no hands at this time, Chair.
With no hands, we'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the council. Are there final remarks by council members? Not seeing any. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll on Resolution 2024-198?
Councilmember Morrell.
Aye.
Councilmember Campbell.
Aye.
Councilmember Krueger.
Aye.
Councilmember Denson. Aye. Councilmember Herrera.
Aye.
Councilmember Hitchin.
Aye.
Councilmember Mello.
Aye.
The result of the roll call vote is 7 ayes and 0 nays.
On a vote of 7 ayes and 0 nays, the resolution is adopted. There are no ordinances on the agenda this evening. That moves us to Section 10, Community Forum. Community Forum is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on any topic that is of significance to or affecting Pierce County government and that did not appear for final action on today's agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit. Please state your name if you would like it on the record, and please address all your comments to the chair. There's no members of the public here in council chambers. Mr. Dominique, anybody in the Zoom room for Community Forum?
For any member of the public that would like to participate in Community Forum this evening, please press the raise hand icon in Zoom or *9 on your telephone keypad. We have one hand at this time, number ending in 434. Please state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, council members, chair. My name is Heather Benedict, born and raised in Tacoma. We're raised in Puyallup Fair. And I'm here, I first want to say that's great about the Constitutional Week. It reminds me of my great-grandmother, who in 1914 was recruited by Carrie Chapman Catt to the women's suffrage movement and then passed the 20th Amendment, sorry, I'm nervous, the 19th Amendment, which gave the woman the right to vote. When she entered in 1914, women were silenced and could not vote in 36 states. And as I write a biography about her, Elsie Lincoln Benedict, I realize that history is repeating itself in real time. I'm here to raise concerns about how power is being misused in Pierce County, particularly Dan Grimm, and how it's affecting me and Constance White, the clerk of the Superior Court. Constance was appointed to lead, but has been silenced by Dan Grimm and Bruce Baymeyer, who have no legal right to control her office. RCW 3623-080 requires that the clerk have a seat at the county table in Pierce County. And if you search Pierce County org chart, you will see Bruce Baymeyer put him and Dan Grimm above and at a different color icon. She's at the kiddie table. She is at the kiddie table with her county seat, while the authority of her is overridden by these men. She's a black female leader who should be empowered and not sidelined. There's been issues after issues I've raised to her, and she says she needs to talk to her superiors, Dan Grimm and Bruce Baymeyer. Her superiors are the public. She has her own county seat. Bruce and Dan Grimm have nothing to do with her. Mr. Grimm has a personal vendetta against me. He once joked in an email the word schadenfreude, which means pleasure in seeing me pain. Recently, a fraudulent court order was entered by the clerk's office that signed Judge Lee Anderson's name while she was on recess. This was done by Dan Grimm. Now I'm forced to fly from where I live now, an $800 ticket to come to this bogus hearing, and the judge won't vacate it because she didn't sign it. Dan Grimm is creating court orders. And then I'm also barred from accessing links, the court's electronic record system, leaving me to pay $1.50 per download for the records. And just today, by way of public records request, this money is going to a company in Virginia called GoVolution. They are not registered in Washington State. It is hundreds of thousands of dollars in a non-compete bid for the credit card processing. We are taxed $1.50 for every download, even if it's one page, 25 cents. It goes straight to this company in Virginia. It's a racket. So here's what I'm asking from the council. Stop the automatic renewal of GoVolution contract and require a competitive bid. It's set to renew by the end of September. You can stop this. Okay, reinstate my access to links, and then empower Constance White to lead independently as mandated by RCW.
Thank you.
There are no more hands at this time, Chair.
With no further hands, we'll close the community forum portion of our meeting. Ms. Benedict, if you're still listening or if you listened to the replay, you did email into the Office of the County Council earlier today about your questions about contracting with the firm GoVolution. I want you to know that I forwarded that to the finance director and asked him to look into the claims being offered about doing business with that firm on behalf of the public. So that is sitting with the finance director for him and his staff's review. Thank you for participating in Community Forum. We're at item number 11, other business and announcements. Is there any other business or announcements by members? Councilmember Coover.
Thank you, Chair. I just was reminded of something every now and then. I catch the Daniel Natal show, and he had mentioned about women's suffrage, and then originally women did not want the right to vote. Along with that came responsibilities, and I'm trying to remember which one in particular that was mentioned, which usually isn't something women do, but it's just kind of an interesting little tidbit that I haven't further researched, but I thought it was something new.
Thank you. Any other business or announcements by other members? I don't see any. Ms. Long, is there any other business for council this evening?
There is not tonight. Thank you.
With no other business before the Pierce County Council, we are adjourned.